lot of the youth right a lot of the youth right now don't really have that kind of mindset. They have the mindset, oh, they might finish high school, they might go to Delta. If they even do, they might just find jobs that they can survive on. But having a CSU here would create that college-going culture, because you have a big university in your town where you could get a degree from, where you could get a good quality education. You could get your degree, and it creates a future where kids don't have to leave Stockton to get their education. They don't have to leave Stockton to learn, and they could stay in Stockton and still get a quality education and be able to get the higher education that they want.
You know, that's a very good point. A lot of families, even families of good people, have no tradition of higher education in their family line. So they don't think in those terms. And good people though they may be, that's not just poverty, that's poverty of mind. And we have to eradicate that so that everybody knows that they have a shot at reaching their full potential and at getting a 21st century job that's high paying and challenging, and that inures to the benefit of the whole community and the whole city. So very well said, young man, very well said. Music to my ears to hear you say that. A culture of college, absolutely correct. So we got another minute or so. Is there anything else that anybody would like to add on any subject that you want to get out and share with the audience here today?
Yeah, actually, so I agree with Rogelio and Ajala. So I come from actually a pretty big family. So growing up, it was always tight money with my parents. And now everyone except me, I'm the youngest in the family, so everyone grew up and they moved out of the house. But money is still tight because the rent just keeps going up and up. So my dad, he has to go all the way to Fremont just to work so that he can get money and then come back. And that doesn't even take in consideration of the gas money that he has to take from Stockton to Fremont and then back. And also, I agree with Ajala for CSU Stockton because it builds up the hope that once you get out of high school, there could be a college waiting for you, especially if you're a low income student and you can see yourself go to a college that is affordable and you don't have to get out of Stockton because Stockton is just a really great place to be in.
And it'll be greater if there's a youth culture. It'll be greater by a factor of 5. I don't know if you've ever been to Telegraph Avenue, the sort of interzone between California State University, Berkeley, and the rest of the city. It's 10 blocks of sheer madness, and it's great. I mean, it's just a vibrant place. It's buzzing with youthful energy. It's crackling with ideas, and it brings the city into the college and the college into the city. I can't stress enough, and I'm so glad to hear that you all are on board with this idea. So we have some questions from the audience. So at this time, I'd like to run some audience questions, and I thank the audience for your questions. So again, see if you want to take a whack at these, all right? So this person says, thank you to all the youth for your bravery in sitting through this panel. What can the city of Stockton do more to support you, your families, and friends?
Programs like Fathers and Families or like Boys and Girls Club. I remember those are the only 2 programs I really know about. Well, not really, but I mean now I know more because Fathers and Family hooked it up and taught me more. But those were the only 2 I really knew because I play sports, right? So there's Pop Warner and Boys and Girls Club. That's a way out to go on a new path, and Fathers and Families and all these great programs we have right here on the board. But where was this back then? That's why we got homeless people now, because they didn't really know about that. My uncle didn't know. He was in class, but he didn't know a lot. But the programs, I feel like the programs will, like if we get more programs, look, we got these chairs that are empty. We got youth up here really speaking, and there's nobody out here. Like, I mean, we got our people, right? We out here, but We need more.
A small group of people like this can change the city.
That's word. Yep.
Okay, next question.
Oh, wait, can I actually answer that
How can we
question?
make more opportunity for teens to work? So, how do you get more jobs for people your age?
You guys, 2 years ago, there was a program called WorkNet. It was wonderful. I mean, you guys shut it down. Youth employment's big. It's big. I mean, if you guys are talking about literacy and everything, I mean, Stockton has the third lowest literacy in the whole United States. And going into SUSD, I think it's great that they're bringing in more counselors and stuff, but what are the counselors really doing? I don't feel like they're grabbing students one-on-one and like, I don't know, because I was the student that was walking around all day, you know? And no counselor, not one, would walk up to me and ask me a question, how's it going? How's your day going? Nobody would ask me that question. And seeing that the counselors only care about the grades and stuff and don't really care about your personal life, I mean, that's tough. Because me as a youth, I didn't really care about literacy. But if I had like a counselor that was sitting there on me like, oh, you know, it's cool to read or whatever, you know, that would be great. And as an employment, you do need to bring back.
Let me interrupt you right there. I want to say this to all of you and to all of you. If you think literacy should be improved in Stockton, read to your kids. Take 30 minutes before bedtime, lay down on the bed with them in a book, and read them a bedtime story. They'll love books, they'll love letters, and you won't have to fight them to go to bed, because at the end of the 30 minutes they'll be sleepy. Read to your kids. Go ahead.
I was just talking about the employment for youth. Like, that's not my job, but it's your guys' job to empower that. And, I mean, I don't know. Never mind.
Okay, so here's another question. You're all very involved already, says this person. How do you imagine growing your impact here in Stockton over the next 5 years? So where are you guys going as leaders and activists in this community?
I would have to say that within the next 5 years to see the school to prison pipeline shut down, and also to see more reinvestment into our youth, because like how, I don't know who said it earlier, but someone was saying that the main reason why stuff's happening right now is because money is the main reason why people do what they do, because they don't have the money to do certain things that they need. And if we invest back in our youth, then certain things like crime or robberies or shootings or whatever the case may be won't happen if we had reinvestment back in our youth.
Yeah. I also think that we should start investing in our teachers, because there's many teachers that are here that are just trying to get money, or especially like teachers that are just going by the curriculum instead of doing things that the students actually need to learn to progress in life. And also, not only the teachers, but also just counselors, because it seems like nowadays counselors are only stuck up on the students' grades and how it would look good on them. So I think that we need to invest in our school, and that way we can possibly find a better way to shut down the school-to-prison pipeline.
You know, to go back a step to the question you were struggling with about teen jobs, I think that the right people can visit the businesses of Stockton and encourage them to be good community citizens and have internships and other job opportunities for Stockton's youth. Mm-hmm. So if they're not offering internships, if they're not giving kids a chance for like summer jobs or a semester-long internship, they should be encouraged to start those programs. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is from an 80s baby. So we should look in the audience and look for the wildest hair, I guess. 80s hair. Are you aware that there are fewer places now to engage in activities that there used to be, such as Golfland, go-karts, skating? So there used to be a number of things for kids to do in this town that aren't happening anymore. So what can be done about that?
I think that like they said, there is less to do now. But something that could really be done is like reopening, like revisiting those things that there used to be able, like people used to be able to like do all these things. Like one of the big things that like probably isn't as popular now that probably was way popular back then is like the skating rinks and stuff like that. I'm sure people used to always go skating, but like nowadays you don't really, like people aren't really like, hey, let's go out, let's go skating, you know, like stuff like that. Or like the Boys and Girls Club, I'm like, it used to be way more popular, I'm sure. But like nowadays you don't really hear anyone talking like, hey, let's go out to the Boys and Girls Club. Or like the Teen Impact Center, you know? That could be a really good, that's a really good place for teens to go and like spend time and hang out and have a place to go. But it's really underused. Like it's a place where like a lot of teens can get together and just hang out, have a place to be, and just have stuff to do there. They have a basketball court, they have a bowling alley, they have food. But it's really like underused, and I'm sure that like if we like advertise these things out to the youth more, if we advertise these things out to the youth more, like if more youth knew about it, like I'm sure there would be more people there. And these are actually the types of places, the things we need to keep kids like off the streets. Like kids have nothing to do, so what do? They just go out and do whatever they want. But if they had things to do, like places to go, then I'm sure these are the things that they would be doing instead of like what they're doing now.
You know, the people behind the Boys and Girls Club of Stockton are trying to get it back up on its feet. They're encountering a lot of challenges. It's unbelievable what they've been through. But they are persevering, and I imagine that in the next year or two, another iteration of the Boys and Girls Club will reopen and provide invaluable recreation, but also mentoring towards college and opportunities for people your age. Okay, we're getting towards the end of the questions. Has anyone on this panel ever had a friendly and positive encounter that they want to share? And by that, I guess you don't mean just saying hi to the mailman, but maybe somebody that was a good role model or that influenced you.
So I've had a lot of good role models in my life. One of them was, his name is, he's a algebra teacher at Edison High School. His name is Mr. Weiss. He's actually my mentor now in photography. And, you know, just having him be there for me and him actually caring for me and him trying to show me and teach me different ways about this particular subject that I love and that I found a passion for. Just him really being there and supporting me really gave me a lot of hope. And then another role model a lot of you are familiar with is Lang Lantau. He's been a good mentor to me in real world like topics, and just how he's shown me and he's given me hope that I know that I can be a college bound student, and that now he's changed he's helped me now want to become a boomerang like he did so, and just help reinvest into the youth that are growing up now.
All right, let's have a big hand for this whole panel. What an outstanding group of young people. Activists today, leaders tomorrow. Thank you so much for taking the time. Folks, you can leave the stage now, and thank you so much.
You're listening to Voices of the Community, which explores critical issues facing Northern California communities. This is George Coster, your host, and if you're just joining us, in this episode we're discussing the reinvention of the city of Stockton, California, at our State of Our Youth, a Stockton Town Hall meeting. We've been listening to the San Joaquin County Youth Council members sharing their work in the community to address the issues that impact their neighborhoods, schools, parks, and fellow community members. Michael Fitzgerald introduces the voices of episodes 2 through 11 from the documentary series to update the community on their work from our original 2016 recordings.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is our second panel. You know, sometimes you hear the term Stockton's finest. That's a term that some people use to describe the police in any city. I think that term needs to be expanded to include our second panel today. These people are the heroes of Stockton. They are the leaders and activists who have devoted their lives to helping the underprivileged and to making Stockton a better city for all of us. Let me introduce them. We have Nicholas Hatton. Nicholas is the founder and executive director of the San Joaquin Pride Center. He's challenged the San Joaquin County and the Central Valley to evaluate how it can best serve its LGBT plus community. Sammy Nunez. Sammy Nunez is the Executive Director of Fathers and Families of San Joaquin. He's a nationally recognized expert in the field of youth development, violence prevention, community organizing for social change. Fred Scheel. Fred Scheel is the administrator of STAND, which is Stockton Taking Actions to Neutralize Drugs. He's developed over 400 units of affordable housing in South Stockton, and he works with residents and the police department to implement and manage community policing. Lang Lun Tao. We have already met Lang. He's, again, the director of the Stockton Scholars and the executive director of Reinvent Stockton Foundation, and he's the chairman of the board of Stockton Unified. Dylan Delvo. Dylan is the executive director of Little Manila Rising. Dylan has served on the Stockton Unified School District Board of Trustees, the Filipino American Democratic Caucus of California, and Catholic Charities. Jasmine Dela Foz. Jasmine is one of the founding members of Reinvent South Stockton Coalition, and she now serves as a senior regional organizer with the Gathering for Justice. Anthony Rodriguez. Anthony Rodriguez is an 8th grade teacher in Stockton, California, and is the Summer Success and Leadership Academy former Mentor Leadership Development Coordinator. Daryl Rutherford. Daryl is the new executive director of the Reinvent South Stockton Coalition. He's worked for the Community Services Planning Council, California Coalition for Rural Housing, the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, and he's executive director for the Sacramento Housing Alliance. Tama Brisbane is the founder and director, along with her husband Aaron, of WOW Incorporated, a nonprofit slam poetry collective. Brandon Leake, we've already met. He is the founder and CEO of Called to Move. He's an artistic visionary and award-winning spoken word poet whose roots lie in what he calls the ghettos of Southside Stockton, California. All right, panelists, welcome, and thank you so much for taking of your time to be here. I know that you're all busy people.
So,
but
Michael, just real quick, Lang had to leave, and joining in Lang's place will be Rhodesia Brownson, the Executive Director of Soil Seed Foundation, and Tracy City Council member.
That's right. Okay, well, thank you for being here and for stepping in at the last minute. All right, so let's go back over the list of some of Stockton's challenges, and then let's talk a little bit about what you do to address them, okay? So I think that the main challenge on everybody's mind in Stockton, or many people's mind, is crime. Is there a panelist who could talk a little bit about the changing crime picture in Stockton and where it's got to go?
I think we're all looking at Sammy.
I'll go after you, Sammy.
Just tell them ladies first.
I think I'm going to redirect the question and say that the main subject on the minds of the panel up here is not so much the crime in Stockton, but crime as it impacts our youth in Stockton. And when it comes to how crime is impacting our youth, I think all of these organizations are focused on the root causes: poverty, lack, safety, trauma, nutrition, literacy. All of those have, they come to bear on how youth are impacted by, and sometimes leads to them participating in activities that lead to them being engaged in the school to prison pipeline. So I would really want to hear from my fellow panelists an expanded answer, not just crime in Stockton. That's not why we're here. We're here to talk about the state of youth in Stockton. So let's talk about crime as it relates to our Stockton youth.
There you go.
Well, before you move on, Tama, what's your part?
Can I just do this one? And it's pronounced Tama.
Tama, I apologize.
Yeah.
So what is your piece of this, and what are you doing to help?
So since 2003, With Our Words, my nonprofit organization, has been engaged in youth development through literacy and the performing arts.
Why is that important?
Why is that important? Because it all comes down to language. It comes down to the use and misuse of words. It comes down to having a facility with words and knowing that if you can change your language, you can change your life. And we have structured pedagogy, programs, and events that engage youth in public speaking, in creative speaking, in competitions that have taken them from Stockton across the country, on almost every stage in our city, crossing genres, involving them with the symphony, the opera, HBO, Brave New Voices, which is an international gathering of over 700 poets from around the world, and taking kids from the 209 and getting them to understand that their area code is not confining them, that they are citizens of the planet, and they do that through words. That's what we do.
Can you give me a before and after example of the youth that come to you that haven't had exposure to this, and then after they've been through some of your programs, how that changes them?
Absolutely. One of my favorite, I have so many favorite stories, but one of my favorite stories involves a young man who barely graduated from Lincoln High School, which is supposedly one of our elite high schools in Stockton. He was not feeling Lincoln. He graduated from Lincoln by the skin of his teeth and was just not feeling education. But he made our slam team. And in going to Washington, D.C., and encountering young people from England and from India and from Canada, and building family just through performing arts and through writing and using his voice to communicate. And at the time, we were there to talk about the No Child Left Behind Act. And he discovered activism. And when he came back to Stockton, he enrolled in Delta College. And he graduated from Delta College with a 4.0. And then he went from Delta College to UC Berkeley. And he graduated from UC Berkeley with a 4.0. And he is now a screenwriter. So.
Oh, great story. Anyone else have a story like that they'd like to share of the transformative nature of their programs?
It got to be transformative, not transactional. My name is Sammy Nunez. I'm Executive Director of Fathers and Families San Joaquin. You look at all of our young people. They are the measurement. They are the metrics. Like Eric and Peter, Tyler, all these young people that were up here, all these young people that lined up are the measurement of who we are. They're a reflection of us. There's an African proverb that says that if the village does not initiate its youth, the youth will burn that village down to feel its warmth, and they should. If you opened up today with the conversation about the policymakers that created these conditions. Our young people did not create the conditions here in East Stockton, South Stockton. These were created. We have to rupture systems. The more that systems are involved in our young people's lives, including the incarcerate state, where's the investment been going? We talked about CSU Stockton. The reality is that most of the public dollars have gone into prisons. Right? This is Prison Alley, the backbone of California, which is 99 corridors full of prisons. And we have the Department of Juvenile Justice, young people right now that have Legionnaire's disease that are bathing in that water right now. This is to me, the youth are the truth. When they got up here and they speak, the way they speak, I'm just super proud of them. And we're teaching them how to be not just activists, but how to rupture systems. The more that our young people are in these systems, the worse off the conditions are or the outcomes are for our young people. So that's number one. It costs over $200,000 to incarcerate a young person for 1 year. $10,000-$15,000 to educate a young person, but we have actually invested more money in incarcerating our youth population. And we're at the lowest levels of youth actual crime and youth incarceration, but you don't see that investment going right back into the community, and those investments are a reflection of our values. If we really loved our youth, then we wouldn't have to be talking about where's the money going to support our young people. So I think that we can't just, to really unpack this idea of crime, I think it's kind of code sometimes, because we're talking about young people, like my sister said, we're talking about liberating our young people, about loving our young people. That's the best crime-solving strategy we can have. Police react to crime. They don't prevent it. What prevents it is us actually engaging with them in leadership opportunities, actually lifting up their voices and asking them, what do you want? How do you want to rock it? How do you want to get down? And actually, I think they could, not only could they lead in the future, they're leading it right now.
And Sammy, I'll tap in on the education front. Being an educator, not just in terms of like special programs, but having been an educator full-time in regular day classrooms, like I talked to one of the young ladies who was on the panel and how she explained how like Franklin didn't service her. Franklin didn't provide her with the necessary things that she needed to be able to become successful, because so much of what was provided at this institution was awarded to those who are already excelling, as opposed to being able to benefit those who are in need of the assistance to be able to grow into all who they can be. Right. And what students recognize at a very young age, as young as kindergarten and first grade, is whether or not people are truly invested in their experience and their growth. And you get teachers in high school who complain about students who are not wanting to put in effort, but aren't looking at the root cause of the fact that these students have had teachers from grade school who have not invested, who have not taken the time. They have had administration who has been extremely absent outside of disciplinary action, and who have like our first interaction with discipline turns out to be from these principals, which inevitably turns out to not enjoy policing, because policing is the same thing as what we get with principals. Anyway, but as we look at what these schools do, they don't end up providing safe spaces for these students to learn, and they oftentimes tell us to leave our issues at the door when nobody ever leaves issues at the door. Right. If I am not eating, that means that I am not focused in class because my stomach is not full. Right. If I don't have functional water to be able to shower, I am now thinking about whether or not I smell in my classroom and am being made fun for it in my recess time, which does not encourage me to be there. And we have to be able to provide students with an ability to be able to process what goes on in their everyday lives, to then also be able to function inside of a classroom setting, which teachers are not often asked to do enough, and also are not equipped enough to do from the training that is required here in California to be able to do these things.
So all these social problems flow into our schools. How do you equip teachers or administrators to deal with them?
I think we should stop focusing on how much technology should not be in classrooms. I think too often teachers are focused on whether or not, like, oh, are you on your cell phone during this time during class? It's like, instead of focusing on getting rid of things, focus on how you can implement them to be functional during these times. And then not only that, but invest in your actual class. Like, talk to your students. Like, instead of focusing so much, like, we had a student who came up here talking about, instead of just focusing on curriculum, I can tell you as an educator, that was all that was rammed down my throat. Like, are you sticking on pace to curriculum? Are you preparing these students for these tests that will come at the end of the year? And we're providing this world with illiterate people to how to actually function in an everyday society that requires them to create, not just like constructively think, but creatively think, to be able to solve and deal with the world and its problems.
Okay, speaking of that, then I have a couple questions for the panel. Talking about the real world first, some years ago, the state of California abolished vocational education. Should everybody be on track to go to college, or should some people be learning trades?
I believe it's the student's choice.
That's right.
And should there be mentors in the schools to help them sort out which direction they might like to take, to apprise them of their options and match their skills? Or is the system inherently unfair enough to do that? Because that's why vocational education was abolished in the first place.
I'm gonna speak to that, and I want to reiterate Brandon's point that it should be the young person's choice, but just like in anything else, when our young people are in school, they don't really care how much people know until they know that those people care. So when you're asking, should there be mentors in school, there should be people in school building those relationships with them, people that they can trust and go to, who know where the resources are, who can help them to navigate a system that's really not designed to help them while we try to fix that broken system. So it needs to be their choice, but there needs to be someone there that they feel that they have a relationship with, if they are in that situation that they need to be guided. We should not, feel like we need to create a caste system and decide you can go to college and you cannot, but we should at the same time make sure that those young people have someone that they feel like they can trust, who can make sure that they have all those options available to them.
Yeah, we want to be sensitive to what you said about the caste system. On the other hand, I know a lot of people my age who are retiring as electricians and other forms of contractors, and they can't sell their business. Because when California abolished vocational education, they didn't train another generation of electricians and other tradespeople. The people that you look for in the phone book or, those online lists to come over and do absolutely important stuff for your house, they're struggling to fill the ranks of those anymore. So I think if you could take I don't want to say racism, but yeah, it was that too, the caste system out, and realize that some people are smart with their heads and some people are smart with their hands. I don't know if I'm smart with either, but I know I'm not smart with my hands. I should never have gone into voc ed. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you make a good point that we need to make sure that those options are available. And so when you say there's systematic things and there's implicit bias in things, and our kids get directed and told, you should go to junior college even if they do qualify to go to college, or you're doing okay, you're going to pass. Well, D is passing.
I don't think being a lawyer is really for you.
Right,
yeah.
There's all of that. And so at the same time, I hear what you're saying. When we talk about having mentors and people they trust and things that we can expose them to in our schools, the adults that are sitting here, we know the system is broken, and our young people know the system is broken as well. And that's why we create so many opportunities for them to lead for themselves and really showing them how to discover the opportunities that they want. And so if they want to go that route, we want them to go that route, but it's not up to us to push them that route.
Sure.
So I hear your point in regards to people not being able to sell their business and career technical education
and to
being
the trades,
taken out.
Trades are honorable. Trades are honorable occupations.
Right.
And you can make a good living. So they're not to be looked down on.
We're not doing that. Well, I'm going to speak for SoASeed. We don't look down on the trades. We make sure that our young people are connected to as many opportunities as possible through our organizations, including the trades. And we bring those people in. So
I'm
sorry, go ahead.
But no, on my end, I think one of the main reasons why that inevitably ended up happening was because of the racism behind the legislation behind that. Was the idea that we ended up pushing minority people into positions where they could no longer become entrepreneurial concepts, but instead they were forced to become employees under these guidelines of what was happening. And now what's happening is we have the same thing occurring just in different ways, as we talked about with like junior colleges versus going to four-year universities. We see it in the redlining of districts and how taxes are funded. I mean, if you look at Lincoln Unified School District at all, it's an extremely racist concept to have in our city just in general, that this entire district contains about like 80% of our wealth in the town. But anyway, as we talk about these ideas and constructs about like encouraging youth to be able to take vocational jobs, it is extremely valuable because we don't have enough plumbers and electricians. We don't have enough people filling in these positions to be mechanics. And if that is a true desire of yours, then pursue after it. Chase it. Like, don't let the world define what your success will be. But also at the same time, if your success is found inside of a classroom in terms of becoming a biologist, a theologian, whatever you elect to be, then choose that for yourself. And it's up for us as an institution to be able to provide all resources for that. So I would agree that we need to have more vocational studies, but not at the sacrifice of providing what we already provide to the students and increasing what we provide for students in terms of literacy and especially STEM, being able to provide students to be able to grow in the technology world, because soon that's going to be what ends up ruling all of our jobs anyway.
I'd like to respond to something that you said. I don't disagree exactly, but you had said that the Lincoln Unified is kind of a racist by design school district. I'd like to remark on that. It's often said that there's there's a North Stockton and there's a South Stockton, and that there's an economic stratification between those two. That's not accurate. Stockton is actually divided into 4 quadrants. The northeast quadrant, the 1/4 of Stockton that's up there in the northeast, has all the diplomas, has all the expendable income, like you said, has all the wealth. Any school district drawn in that northwest quadrant is going to have a higher median income than the rest of the town. Now, the northeast quadrant, as well as the 2 quadrants in South Stockton, are also economically disadvantaged. One of the reasons that I keep harping on a California State University Stockton is so that the rest of that other parts of Stockton have the diplomas as well. So that the wealth is not all concentrated in the northwest quadrant, but spread throughout the city. And that opportunity and the opportunity for high-paying 21st century jobs is available to everybody in every part of Stockton, and that the wealth and therefore the power is not just cloistered in this one part of town. Anyway, agree or disagree? Panelists?
I want to take it back to crime, because the crime that hasn't been addressed is really the crime that has been put upon our city, and why our city is the way it is the way rich developers have divided our city to ensure that certain communities won't have the same resources than others. And we've seen this through, of course, redlining, the creation of communities that have their own school districts, which means that those developers actually profit by ensuring that Stockton Unified never be the best district in our community. Why do we have Manteca Unified in Stockton? Why do we have Lodi Unified in Stockton? Why do we have Lincoln Unified in Stockton? When you don't see Stockton Unified in Lodi, right? And so if you build two houses and you build one house, and they're exactly the same, you build one house in the SUSD district, and then you build one house in Lincoln Unified district, Lincoln Unified is going to have a higher property value, right? And so we've segregated ourselves in this way, or at least developers have done that, and they've profited from it. They profited by making sure our community is the way it is. And so if we're going to be talking about crime, for us, from our perspective, crime, we are victims of crime in that for the cultures that have been created by the segregation of our community, crime, sadly, is an option for folks in our community. But overwhelmingly, if given the proper resources, with equitable solutions, with true healing from this real trauma that exists, the fact that the richest people in our community have gotten rich by dividing the city exactly the way it is, and that these people still haven't been reined in, right? Right? Nor are they reinvesting their dollars, these dollars that they've made by creating the community that we have, back into South Stockton, right? In a way that you've seen other philanthropy has done that, and the fact that San Joaquin Community Foundation hasn't been historically investing in equitable solutions in Stockton is really the real crime that exists in our community. I think that's what we're really talking about today. And so I think what Little Manila does is, through ethnic studies, we provide the context of history that has not been taught. We think on purpose, because these are the stories of our families. These are the stories of how we've been marginalized, right? Whether it be as people of color, well, of course, as people of color. And history, has just, it's there. It's just historical fact. We are nowhere close to creating equitable solutions in our community. And I think what the difference that you're seeing in our community now is that we are trying like crazy to bring those equitable solutions. And the biggest threat to that are folks who say, oh, it needs to be good for everyone in our community. When the simple truth is, many of our people, whether it be because of redlining, because of colonization, because of slavery, all these things add up to who we are today. And there's a lot that we have to do. But really, everyone has to play a role in bringing equitable solutions.
So Dylan, or any panelist, have you read Stockton's General Plan 2040, and do you think that it addresses these geographic inequities, or do you think it perpetuates them? Are we moving in the right direction or the wrong direction?
I think regarding downtown redevelopment, it's sorely needed. Sorely needed, right? Obviously, it's always been...
Dylan, I asked you a question and now I'm interrupting, so I apologize. Sure. But let me just give the panel this background and you this background. The General Plan 2040, the plan for the city, the blueprint for the city between now and then, is a departure from general plans of the past. I'm not saying it's good, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's different. And the way that it's different is that it's all about something called infill. It does not allow sprawl, except for the sprawl, and there's lots of it, that was already approved by previous councils. It draws a line at 8 Mile Road and says we're not going to grow beyond there unless there's an extraordinary job generator, like a Tesla plant or a CSU Stockton. It requires 14,000 housing units to be built within the city limits and focuses more on the health of existing neighborhoods and the downtown area. So, Dylan, with that background, what's your perspective on the general plan?
Sure. Well, back in 2003, Little Manila Rising was it was one of the groups that successfully stopped the demolition. You know, at the height of Stockton was the fastest growing city in America at the time. And basically, the city of Stockton had given the keys to the city to the developers, and that's where sprawl development got created. Of course, the majority of that being school districts not of Stockton Unified. And I think our mantra has always been it really speaks to the culture of our community, right? Like when I talk about redevelopment and the fact that the richest people in our community got rich by creating the community that is they created this culture of upward mobility, meaning that to be successful in Stockton, you have to buy into someone else's community. You have to buy into that community so that, whatever it be, Spanos and group, you get rich, right? But rather, we think what's more important is building community. And that's what stranglehold. We've never had a lack of amazing people in South Stockton, right? But if your marketing has always been move into our community, which happens to be on the north side, and that's how you become successful in Stockton, well, then that's why you have that huge brain drain. We have amazing people, but we haven't had the ability for our own people to say, let's build our own community, the place where our parents live, where our aunties and uncles live, our grandparents live, rather than just moving up north and then taking them out of there. We really need to build community rather than buy in community. And I think that's what the general plan can do. I think it can go further to make that happen, but I think it's a good start.
Yeah, I'm Daryl Rutherford, and I think general plans are good ideas to have in community, and I appreciate the direction that this city is focused on the infill and wanting to reinvest back into the communities that have already been built. But I think I also need to throw out a word of caution to the leaders as they go through to develop these plans and push for further development, that they're going to do development without displacement. And displacement of the longtime residents that have built their lives and cultures and families in these communities. Also the small businesses, the mom and pop shops that make downtown thriving right now. I mean, I love walking around and going to all the mom and pop restaurants and stores. I like to go to the guy who shines the shoes downtown. I mean, it's like those are types of things that also need to be protected as development is going in. We also need to think about how we're going to create more affordable homes for people to live in as redevelopment does take place, because this community has the potential of being attacked by gentrification. And if that happens and we're doing it without the right policies in place, then the people who have lived here that have built this community will no longer be able to benefit from the redevelopment that does take place with the grocery stores coming in, places to shop for clothes and retail, other amenities that we all need to thrive on.
So the right policies in your view of gentrification is if a neighborhood is going to be revived, or like a district like downtown, is don't displace people.
Don't displace it. Let's think about how can we incorporate an inclusionary housing policy, which would require for every market rate unit being built that you're also building an affordable home. Talk about creating an affordable housing trust fund that could be used in multiple ways to reinvest back into the communities to build the affordable homes that are needed, but then also develop the programs within that can reinvest back into the neighborhood neighborhoods that need some investments in it, that need sidewalks, that need the homes rehabbed, so that families are living in a healthy environment. There are a number of things that this city needs to be doing in order to address this issue over the next 20 years or so around this general plan, and we need the leaders to step up and really put some progressive policies in place that will protect the folks living here.
Fred Shield, you work in this area. Any thoughts and to keep it grounded? How hard is it to build affordable housing in Stockton, and how does that affect the youth of the city?
Well, it's supposed to be the number one priority of the city right now, creating housing for the homeless and doing affordable housing and infill housing. As one of the few guys doing this in the city, I don't see that it's number one priority. The council has said it is, but the reality of doing it and working with city staff, it is extremely difficult. It's roadblock after roadblock, and I'm about done working in the city. I'm going to do my work in the county. I'm going to put up affordable units in the county because I can work with them. But the city staff has made it so insanely difficult.
And what needs to change?
I'll leave that up to the rest of you to figure that out because it's a complete mystery to me. How it can be declared number one and how it can be such a problem.
Thank you for your honesty.
And the general plan is, I thought that was a beautiful, beautiful process. I went to probably 3/4 of the community meetings that were held on there all over the city. And everybody, poor neighborhood, rich neighborhood, white neighborhood, brown neighborhood, everybody said the number one priority is to fix these older neighborhoods. We can't bring people in the city and sell them on Brookside, and then they go drive around on their own, and they're looking at our mess on the east side and go, I'm not going to invest in this city. Why? Because it's obvious to me that you're going to do the same thing to us once I come in that you've done to other parts of this city. You get us in, and then you ignore us. The south, the east side, the downtown, there's pockets in the north, have been just left on their own and ignored and fought and told to fight for yourself.
And how does that impact the youth?
Slightly off the subject, but not. I like the gentleman who was talking about dealing with the Stockton police officers downtown. I have been on the Chief's Citizen Advisory Board for 5-6 years now. Chief and the top management, I think, are doing a fantastic job. The problem is they're hiring brand new officers, and kids on the street down there, those officers are more scared of you than you're scared of them. These are kids coming out of and they're not much older than you. They're coming out of rural neighborhoods, suburban neighborhoods. They have no clue about where you're coming from, what your brown culture is, what your black culture is, how you function. It takes them. I've had one of those police officers, I asked him, and he's a minority himself, how long does it take the average officer to be comfortable, to understand the culture of dealing with everybody they deal with on a daily basis? 12 years before they even begin to grasp it. So I'm trying to figure out, the unions have created the process within law enforcement. You have to go through all these background checks and aptitude tests and everything else, and it just seems to completely weed out the kids that are coming from our poor neighborhoods that have the street skills and smarts to know how to be good police officers. So let's figure that out. The department is willing. Tell me who's ready, and let's get you going.
That's a good point, Fred. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'd like to suggest as one reason why we don't get the police officers that this community, and I'm not putting down the Stockton Police Department. I really respect the chief and what he's doing, and I know there's many admirable people in the police department, but Stockton can't pay police as much as other communities can. And so when they made the police salaries sustainable during Stockton's bankruptcy, that is, salaries that weren't going to drive us back into the poorhouse, there was something called the Exodus. And that is a huge number of Stockton police officers just left the force to go to usually more affluent coastal communities where they would get wages, better wages and benefits. I'm not blaming them. I mean, they have lives, they have families, they have to make their own choices. But once again, it comes back to what? The economy. If we had a bigger tax base, we'd have more police, we'd have better policing. And how do we get a better tax base? A better economy? Well, California State University, Stockton. All right.
I believe Nick had something to say.
Can I?
No, I was highlighting you.
Okay, thank you. There's another way, and that's revenue. And I'm a big Prince fan. A lot of people know this. And I went to...
Me too.
Are you? Oh, didn't know
yeah.
that.
Best show I ever saw.
Went to Minneapolis after Prince passed away to see the Revolution perform. I can't think of the venue now. And the friends that were local folks, we all went and had dinner before the concert, as you often do. And we were discussing how Minneapolis became what it is. And what happened was they valued the arts. And they passed a tax that required every single student to learn an art form. And many of them, including Prince and his friends, picked up instruments. Now you look at the millions and millions of dollars, and by the way, all of these artists stayed in Minneapolis. Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, Prince, all generating millions in revenue for this one community. And I see the hip-hop culture that is just raw and beautiful in this city, and I don't see why we can't do something similar.
Let me ask you, educators on the panel, are the inner city schools music programs, are they funded, or have they defunded the music programs?
They're woefully funded at best. I would like to pose a question to the young people in the audience. By show of hands, how many of you know somebody that's in the studio working on a project?
Number of hands went up.
Yeah. How many of you know an aspiring rapper or an MC?
Again, even more hands.
To be a rapper or an MC means you have to have a facility with language. I always tell the rappers that come into our program, Mama T, I don't know if I can be a poet. Well, basically, if you take the beats away from a rapper, you got a lyricist. And a lyricist is simply a synonym for a poet. And everybody has equal access to this microphone. This is an art and a trade in and of itself. And all of this is woefully unacknowledged and unrecognized and not lifted up enough and not funded enough and not appreciated enough in our schools and in our community.
For every dollar spent, $4 comes back in revenue.
Right?
That's something that can be addressed to the school board, right? I mean, shouldn't we not be going to the school board and telling them, look, we want some of the budget to be directed to inner city music programs?
We not only want to address it at the school board level, but we also have to put the onus back into the community. Are we providing platforms for when these kids do these things, when they create these magnificent arts projects? Where are we showcasing them? Mm-hmm. Are we putting them in their own little academic gulags and only segregating them to a Franklin or to a Chavez or to an SCI, but are we actually putting them into the community and lifting them up so that we can see the fruits of this kind of labor and the return on that potential investment?
So perhaps the city could have some kind of festival celebrating the musical arts, the youth musical arts.
Or the city and the county can kick down some tax revenue to go towards funding arts.
Thought that's what we did with Measure M.
Okay, we have about 5 minutes, panel, before we take the questions. I would like to throw it open to anybody that would like to talk on any subject.
I just want to. Anthony Rodriguez, I'm here representing Summer Success and Leadership Academy. Runs at University of Pacific every summer. They're going on our 10th year now. But I just want to kind of just support what everybody's been saying with our youth. I'm in the classroom 180 days out of the year. I'm there, even if I'm sick, just because of the things my youth feel and the things that they go through every day and the things that they encounter in their neighborhoods. I teach at Marshall Elementary here in Stockton Unified, so I'm right in the heart of it. And I think one of the things that I can really say in regards to like our students and like something that they need is they need to be connected to all these people. They need to be exposed to everything that these people do on this panel. They need to understand the choices that are out there for them and the things that are available to them in the community. But not only that, but also how the community feels about them and what the community wants them to achieve as well. So I'm looking at this panel now, and I've already seen three people on this panel. Three people on this panel visited my classroom this week and spoke to my children. Jasmine, Mama T, and then I had fathers and families in my classroom this week, just speaking to my students, talking to them about the options and the things that are available to them in the community and the resources. You know, these, as a teacher, as an educator, that's what I am. I'm a teacher. I'm not Stockton's poet laureate. I'm not a servant leader. I'm not a rapper. I'm not any of those things, but I know people I can connect my students to that are. That can open up their resources to our kids. That can open up their heart. I'm messing with it. That's my fault. But I think that's one of the things that really is missing from our classrooms, is that our teachers are so focused on their qualifications, you know, and we're not focused on are we like we're qualified, but are we truly qualified? You know, I'm not qualified to inform them about, you know, getting involved with our words. I'm not qualified to, you know, just speak to them about how do I get involved in the studio. I have no idea, but maybe Tama knows.
So you're advocating partnerships.
Yeah, Tama. I know you are. You're going to get me. I said it this week too. And she got me this week. Okay, so I'm gonna pass the mic. Thank you.
Right, Jasmine? I'm going to start off with Fannie Lou Hamer. We are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And let me just first off and start off, because what we didn't do today was recognize the people on this stolen land from the Yorkit tribe and our indigenous people who have had this city continuously never recognize the people who have been on this land forever. And another thing is, I don't know how we got to this conversation, but let me bring it back. First of all, let me acknowledge all the young people. I'm actually my emotions are very high in anxiety just because of the way this has been handled today. And I just want to acknowledge our young people for just the work you've been able to do. And I wish you were able to share more about how you've gone to this place and how you were able to really do this work and what it means for you to sacrifice every single day to wake up and to be able to show up in your classrooms when things in your schools are happening. Again, excuse my voice if it's shaking. I'm just almost angry. And so let me just also acknowledge that let us not forget where we have been, and let us not forget about the work we have done, because we have done so much work, and let us not sit here in vain saying that we haven't done anything, or what are we going to, it is not our job. Those people who are in office and we elected them, those people who work for the city are there to do their job. It is not, we are here to also provide input and stuff, but they are being paid to be able to come up with these resources and figure out what they need to do to make that happen. On our end, we are working with our people, doing everything we can to be able to fight for what is needed for us. We have come a long way. We started building coalitions. We brought people back together. We have spent hours, countless hours at night, meeting with parents, meeting with students, walking the street, knocking door to door with people about what is happening in our communities and how do we really show up for our people. We've been working with young people to really elevate and cultivate their voices, because these young people didn't have no one here years ago talking about, issues they were going through. Our young people were being locked up or killed or dead. Yep. In 2010, we had one of the highest rates of homicide rates, 2011, 2012, and 10 of those people being one of close friends to me. And when we talk about what this work really means to us, we must recognize the pain, the sacrifice, the trauma that has been put into our communities. And we can't have these conversations about what we're having until we acknowledge where we're at and where we've been. And I think we need to give ourselves a round of applause for what we've been able to do, because it is not our job to fix what has been happening to us. And another thing is that the system is operating exactly how it's supposed to be operating, because it wasn't made for us. And that's us as in people of color. The system is working exactly how it's supposed to be working, because it was never created and designed for us. And what we also need to recognize is that we have been advocating at school boards. We've been going to school districts for decades talking about the need for access to counselors, the need to disrupt the school-to-prison pipeline, the need for restorative justice in our schools, the need for ethnic studies, the need for additional teachers, lower classrooms, more pay for teachers, more salary to folks to be able to show up in our class. We have been doing that fight for years, and we are continuously to do this fight for years. And what we must acknowledge is that we're in a different place where we were back from 2012, 2013. Yes, we are facing some hard times here in Stockton this year, but what we need to recognize is that the work continues, the marathon continues, and we continue to do this work with our people who are doing this work. And I want us not to forget about the work that has been happening. We've been doing so much work on the ground. We are spending countless hours. Like I said, we are doing things that people should be doing, the county should be paying for, the city should be paying for. We are fighting hours, unpaid, to be able to find grants for our young people. We're cleaning up parks that we don't even need to be cleaning up, because the city should be doing that. We're spending our own recreational time to build a beloved community that we imagine and desire to see, because one, we know what it's like to show up in a community, and we know how to be in community, and we know how to love one another. But I'm just saying, today what we need to recognize is that we have come a long way, and we're coming here to talk about the state of where our young people is, right? Years ago, young people didn't have a voice at the table. Young people today in our organizations and in the work we're doing is they are being able to have a seat at the table. They are on this stage, and they are telling us the way to go. Because if we really want to know where to go, ask our young people, because they know where to go.
Thank you. Another question from the audience. How do you break the school-to-prison pipeline?
Ooh. Ooh. You got to tell them. You got to inform your kids. Your kids need to know the truth. You can't beat around the bush no more. My thing with my students is I sit them down and I let them know the truth right when they walk through my classroom. I don't bull crap with them. That's right. I like that. The first lesson they hear when they walk through my door is the rose that grew from concrete, and they understand what it means, why he wrote it, why Tupac. I'm gonna say his name. Why Tupac wrote it the way he did. What's embedded within all those words, and I help my students realize that he was talking about them. But we get deeper into that, and I actually use a article of yours, Mr. Fitzgerald, the nihilism article that you wrote. When Mr. Tubbs was what was her name? Anna DeVry, is that how you say it? Devier Smith. Thank you so much. We use her article and we break it down and we talk about that nihilistic mindset and what it means to grow up in a community that has that mindset and how that affects them. What it means to live in that, and seeing my kids come to reality with that is scary. It's a scary thing, because you have to bring them back, because it really beats them down. It's a beat down. You have to be honest with them, though, that this is real. This is what it is. This is why y'all are dying. This is why you feel that way when you go home. This is why you feel this way when you show up to my classroom, when you show up to this school, when you walk down the halls, when you sit down in that class, when you do this, when somebody's yelling at you, kicking you out of class, sending you to the office multiple times, why you see that little second grader walking around the school all day long. Look it in the face now. Understand it. Now let's come to reality. Because you are somebody in this community. You have an identity. You have somebody that you are destined to be. Let's bring it back. Let's connect you with many different people in the community that want the same things for you, that look like you, that want you to grow into something more than what your community is teaching you. And that it's like I said, it's a scary thing to see, and it's a scary thing to be around. But at the end of it all, at the end of this past week that I had at my classroom, I'm able to open up their eyes to the world and open up their eyes to the many different people that I can connect you with, and that this resource is always going to be here for you. You have a hub, a place you can come to get any help that you need. I was yelling at one of my students when I first got here because his grades are not where they need to be. But and I let him know that, dude, you got to let me know this now. You got to come over. Marshall is your hub. Understand that. If you ain't going to get it at Edison, come over to Marshall. My door is always open. They don't have those resources everywhere. That's not available to them everywhere. Our teachers aren't informing our kids of the truth. And it's really scary that's happening. But I'd much rather have my kid be knocked down, me build them back up, send them off to Edison, send them off to Franklin, and know that those values and those things that I have taught them are instilled into their mind, and that they know that these things are available. They know that it's their choice. I can't hold your hand. Jasmine can't hold your hand. We can't hold your hand as you walk through high school and make these choices, but I can inform you of these choices. I can inform you of what's going on. You have to look it into the eyes, and you have to make the choice of what you gonna do.
May I just chime in on that one right there in terms of dismantling the school-to-prison pipeline, and as my brother Dylan would say, creating a school-to-social justice pipeline so our young people can be revolutionaries, because loving yourself in a society that teaches you to hate yourself is a revolutionary act, and we're teaching our young people how to love themselves. We love them until they learn how to love themselves because they've been lied to. And telling them the truth is radical, right? Being honest is radical nowadays. So, you mentioned the roads that rule from concrete. Some folks don't know that poem. I think it's worth repeating the poem. People ask why young men have gone from bad to worse, why they have little regard for human life. To ask why is to deny that from which they came from. You see, you wouldn't ask why the roads that grew from concrete had damaged petals. On the contrary, we would all celebrate its tenacity. We would all love its will to reach the sun. We are the roses. This is the concrete, and these are my damaged petals. Don't ask me why. Thank God. Ask me how. How many people love young people? How many people love the Stockton youth in here? How many people love Stockton youth in here? How many Stockton youth know that they are loved? How many Stockton youth know that they are loved? What we got to do is we need to be all in. We need to be all in with our young people. Ride or die with our young people. We're going to show up for our young people. We're going to tell them that they're a irreplaceable special gift to us. That's what they need to hear repeatedly. And the only way we can do that is by showing up and being all in. Go ahead.
That's right.
Stockton. 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 Rise up. Rise up. Rise up. As one. As one. As one. That's how we dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline and make sure our babies have the best of the best that they have not been afforded up until now. That's why we stand in the margins with them.
Thank you. Let's have a big hand for our panel. There is some real passion there. Panel, I'd like to thank you so much for your passion and your commitment to Stockton. It is an honor to stand on this stage with people who are making a difference as you do with the most important people in the world, the youth of Stockton. Thank you so much. Let's have another hand for them, please.
Take a selfie.
You're listening to Voices of the Community, which explores critical issues facing Northern California communities. This is George Coster, your host, and if you're just joining us, in this episode we're discussing the reinvention of the city of Stockton, California at our State of Our Youth, a Stockton Town Hall meeting. We've been listening to the voices of the nonprofit Social Justice All-Star Collaborative with Nicholas Haddon, the founder and executive director of the San Joaquin Pride Center, Sammy Nunez, the executive director of Fathers and Families of San Joaquin, Fred Schell, the administrator of STAN, Dylan Delvo, the executive director of Little Manila Rising, Jasmine Delafos, one of the founding members of the Reinvent South Stockton Coalition, Anthony Rodriguez, former mentor, leadership development coordinator at the Summer Success and Leadership Academy, Daryl Rutherford, the new executive director of the Reinvent South Stockton Coalition, Tama Brisbane, the founder of With Our Words, Brandon Leake, the founder of Call to Move, and Rhodesia Ransom, the executive director of Sow a Seed Community Foundation, along with the community engaging with community leaders to develop solutions for the ongoing issues facing the reinvention of the city of Stockton. One of the outcomes from the nonprofit Social Justice All-Star Collaborative's work with the San Joaquin County Youth Council is the development of a youth manifesto. The manifesto is a collective, groundbreaking pledge towards equity and resilience for Stockton's area's youth. Let's get back to the show to hear Tama Brisbane present the manifesto with youth leaders.
So let's get into another part of our program, scheduled and important. We're gathered because we're talking about the state of our youth. Yet another gathering. This is not an unfamiliar concept. This is not something we haven't seen before. Grown-ups have been gathering in Stockton to talk about youth for decades. Too often. Not often enough do we create platforms for youth to speak for themselves. Today you saw an example of what it looks like and what it sounds like for empowered, informed youth to speak for themselves. If we replicate that, we will lessen the need for grown-ups to continue to gather to talk about youth. Just a point. What we are about to hear from next is a shift in the paradigm, a change in the horizon, the earth feeling differently under our feet, because for the last 18 months, a group of organizations dedicated to the empowerment, acknowledgement, and elevation of youth and their voices has been working tirelessly, not just to create another plan, because if you're a grown-up in this city and you've been active in youth in any capacity, you've been in a room with butcher block paper going up on the walls, and we write things down, and then we roll up the butcher block paper, and we never see it or hear about it again. This ain't that day. Today we are going to be talking about what happens when action comes out of conversation, when a plan comes out of conversation, and when a plan comes with intent and with follow-up and with steps that can be accomplished and data that can be measured. It's called a manifesto. It's a big old SAT word, meaning we about to get some stuff done. This manifesto can best be explained by two of the driving forces behind it. And we'll show you what happens when people come together across generations, across color, across culture, across ethnicities, across accomplishments, across communities. Best personified by the founder and executive director of Fathers and Families, my brother Sammy Nunez, and also by our city council person from the city of Tracy and the founder of Sow a Seed, soon to be advancing to yet another elected office. Please welcome Ms. Rhodesia Ransom.
Go ahead, sis. I'm with you. Lead us off.
All right. So, as you see, the theme for the day, it's the state of our youth. We're standing here, but it's not about us being here as the organizations and the adults. Really, we're here because we want to give our youth an opportunity to be helped and to be heard. And then we also want to be accountable as those who run these organizations, who run Fathers and Families, who run the Pride Center, who run Little Manila, who tell our young people that this is a place where you can come, that it's about you, that you'll be safe here, that you'll be helped here, that we'll deal with your trauma, and that we will protect you from the system that was not designed for you. And so what the manifesto is about, it's us coming together with the stories of our youth, with the pain of our youth, with the triumphs of our youth, and really putting pen to paper to say, what does it mean for them to be resilient? What does it mean for them to be protected? What does it mean for them to have a way, no matter what their zip code is, no matter what their experiences are in this community, how do we connect them? And then how do we, not just today, as Ms. Thama mentioned, roll up the butcher paper, but how do we put pen to paper and then follow through? And we've taken a lot of time, and we had to check ourselves. We had to stop midway and go, wait, where are the young people? Because we were bringing your stories into our boardroom, but you weren't there. And so our manifesto is about bringing the young people along with us as we move to change the stories of Stockton. I'm not from Stockton. I've had the pleasure of working in Stockton because the organization Sow a Seed works in the schools. And I'll be honest, when I came here, I said, we've been doing this work all over the place. They invited us to Stockton. And I'll tell you, the stories of Stockton are different than the stories of Tracy, the stories of Manteca. And I had to step back and really trust the people that I work with here in this community, because I can't come and tell you how to solve your problems, but I can show you where the system will fail you, and I can work with you to change those systems. And so our manifesto is about changing systems. Our manifesto is about educating you and giving you the game about how the system works so that you don't fall in the traps of the system. And so I'm going to go ahead and let Sammy says all of this way better than I do. But the one thing that Sammy says all the time, and it's true for young people, it's true for adults, it's nothing about us without us. And the Youth Manifesto is about you. And we're going to do that with you. We're going to deliver that with you. And it's really about working to help change the trajectory and to really make an investment, not just with our words, no pun intended, Mama Tama, not just with our words, but with our actions. And so that's what our manifesto, the Youth Manifesto, is all about.
First of all, can we just hear it for Miss Rhodesia Ransom? This sister right here, she's amazing. I love her tremendously. But I'm going to tell you, we've had conflict. We've had conflict in our group, but I love these people, Dylan and Nicholas and Daryl and Jasmine and all those folks that have participated, because you know what? We show up and we show love. And that's the most important thing. This is our strategic plan for Praxis, and it's really a plan for the future of Stockton. And I think that one of the things that I know for sure is this. Hi, one of the things I know is for sure is this. Is that my baby, my, she needs to know that these young people that are just in front of her are actually getting prepared, right? So that way she can come up behind and have a pipeline into higher education and the social justice and movement building, right? That she doesn't have to worry. We don't have to worry about her being outside, playing outside. We don't have to worry about the water she's drinking or the air she's breathing. That we really are like healing up our community. Right, and it begins with our young people. One of the young people once said, I said, man, y'all got to get along. I said, you first. Right? Our kids are a mere reflection of the adults that surround them. I'm proud of the kids that hang around me because I'm like, hey, y'all make me look good. But that's the truth, though. They don't come like, they come with struggle. They come with pain. They come with a lot of cargas, but they have so many gifts. And this is what our gift is to our young people and our future posterity of Stockton, is a plan that I think if it's executed to the way we created it and crafted it, with the love and the thoughtfulness and the care that we put into our young people, then I think our future is going to be bright. The best days of Stockton are in front of us, not behind us. And so we spend countless hours working on this, having breakfast burritos and, really because, you have to have a progressive vision. And these are the organizations that you can bank on that'll show up for our community, without a doubt. So I don't have really much else to say. We're gonna disseminate it. It's your manifesto. It's not ours. It's for the people. This is what the people, I think, need to actually get their hands on and start to study, so that way we can see the future clearly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, panelists. Well, we're running over time, so we pretty much have to get to the closing. So I'd like to share a couple thoughts with you, and the subject may surprise you. I want to talk to you about Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd's original members all met at a school of architecture in London, England. They were all studying to be architects, but for a lark, they formed a band. They started playing gigs, and lo and behold, a record company offered them a contract. So the members of Pink Floyd went home, and the drummer, Nick Mason, later told this story. He said, "Dad, we're going to drop out of architecture school, and we're going to try to make it as a rock and roll band." And the father said, and I quote, "You are not dropping out." He thundered, "You are staying in school, because I guarantee you this music thing is going nowhere." Pink Floyd went on to become one of the most commercially successful bands of all time. Dark Side of the Moon was on the Billboard chart for 14 years. It sold more than 45 million copies. And overall, they've sold something like 250 million copies worldwide. The moral of this story comes right back to Stockton. It has to do with inventing a new future. Most people invent their future out of their past. That's what Stockton's leaders did for years, even as the world changed around them and even as Stockton fell behind. I know a lot of the people in City Hall. They're good people. But most of them are risk-averse. They're like that Pink Floyd father. They think what they're preaching is the best, but it's not fair, and it's a recipe for mediocrity. We don't need to be chained by the bad ideas of yesterday. We can envision a better city, a safe, prosperous, poppin' city, and make it a reality. But here's the thing, and you may have gotten this from the panel: the cavalry isn't coming. City Hall, state government, Uncle Sam, they can help, but they can't do the job. It's our job. It's your job. We have to do it ourselves. I hope today the town hall shows you that we can do it, and we are doing it. So get out and get involved in your community. There's a great city out there just waiting for you to find it. Thank you. Thank you.
Being born and raised in Southside Stockton, I can most certainly discuss all of the issues in which we've talked about here. From our poor, low-income, oftentimes minority communities being ravaged with drugs and alcohol due to what zones are allowed to be able to have grocery stores and things of that nature, to over-policing, to lack of funding in schools and things to that nature. But I think one of the most beautiful things that we can talk about today as well is exactly what Jasmine was talking about, is the fact that we have really grown and progressed so much from where we once were and who we are continuing to become. And so I have a poem for you all today entitled Mudville. The reason why is because that is our city nickname, if you don't know that. And I think it's really fitting because so oftentimes people hate the mud, especially us, uppity adults. We hate to get dirty. We hate to get filthy. But if you look at any kid inside of a pile of mud, they are enjoying the time. They are loving it. And I think it's a reflection of the fact that we need to become more childlike in our demeanor. And the fact that we need to be able to look at the world from the optimistic lens of a child and say, how can we change it by any means necessary? And so here we go. This concrete assembly carries the weight of a great burden. The perceptions of the world versus the reality of who it is becoming. Isn't that the battle we all face in coming home? Constantly being viewed from a lens too old for a proper view. I believe this world's gaze of this place is askew. But that's okay. There's nothing but time and opportunity for us to lay waste to your blockades. This is the fight of a generation. Because progression cannot be boxed in, and we ain't boxing. We no longer lay hands out of frustration. Nah, we in prayer circles putting hands on folks in love we loving today. Showing the world our true colors, a gorgeous array of hues from the rugged south side of Crow Valley to the pristine west side of Brookside, from the disenfranchised east to the abundant north. We are no longer assimilating, but instead we shall shine our bright colors, electing to use what we have today to create a more beautiful tomorrow. We are fertile ground, nurturing to whomever chooses to embrace us. Just call us Mudville. And though freshly suited adults disdain the mud, we all love what sprouts from it. So let us reform our gaze to the mind's eye of a child, and when we do that, let's just wait and see. For this garden is coming into full bloom, and what a wonderful sight we shall be to marvel at, because Stockton is growing from the mud. Thank you.
That's it for this special live event, The State of Our Youth, a Stockton Town Hall meeting, long-form episode of Voices of the Community. You've been listening to the voices of community leaders from the nonprofit Social Justice All-Star Collaborative and the collaborative's San Joaquin County Youth Council, who are working together to reinvent their collective community narrative. Over these past 3 years, this documentary series, From Bankruptcy to Reinvention, the City of Stockton, has been a labor of love. The documentary series is a final tribute to my mother, Josephine Coster Wiley, who grew up in South Stockton and passed away during the production of the documentary series. I want to thank my associate producers, Eric Estrada and Nick McClendon, as well as advising producer Malcolm Cecil. Casey and Brian Nance from Citron Studios, who worked their magic to bring the website ideas to life. I also want to thank these wonderful Stockton partners. Mike Fitzgerald for being our wonderful master of ceremonies and facilitator. Gary, Greg, and the entire crew from G-Force Productions for all the audio-visual magic. Brittany and Adriana from KWDC for broadcasting the documentary series. Philip and the Fathers and Family crew for supporting the town hall meeting on Facebook and social media. Pedro from Roadfinch for shooting our video, which will be available as part of our radio documentary series. Nicholas Haddon and his wonderful spirit and ongoing support through these almost 3 years of working on this project. The Social Justice All-Star Collaborative for helping us make the town hall event idea come to life. The San Joaquin County Youth Council for their participation and vision today. And of course, all the wonderful voices of our community leaders who participated in the radio documentary series. Don't forget to go to georgecoster.com to listen to all 13 episodes of From Bankruptcy to Reinvention, the City of Stockton, California documentary series, as well as exploring both the voices and organizations featured in the series. Please check out the wonderful highlight video of the town hall event. We also will have a link to our YouTube channel with the entire unedited video of the town hall event. You can also listen to our archived past shows, which feature community voices working on solutions to critical issues facing Northern California communities. Please rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, and share the story with your friends. Follow us on Twitter @GeorgeCoster, and email us at george@georgecoster.com. I'm George Coster in San Francisco, and thank you for listening.